Mark+Strama, he is a former director of programs for Rock the Vote, and he's now a state representative in Texas. So you of all people should know what the role of young people is going to be in this election, which is what we've been asking everyone, but we'd love to get your take.
Well, I was at Rock the Vote in the 1996 election cycle. We worked really hard, we had a lot of fun. We also achieved the historically lowest turnout of young voters in American electoral history. Now that I don't take the entire blame for. I think a lot of that was because that was an election year that was just uninteresting to young people, largely because the political candidates were ignoring them. It was not that competitive a race, and it wasn't the type of campaign that even 4 years earlier Bill Clinton had run when he reached out to young people on Arsenio Hall. So this year obviously would have been the dream year to be at Rock the Vote. This is the year when young people are really engaging, and it's wonderful to see. It's something I've hoped for a long time. In my own political career, I've worked a lot to engage young people in my campaigns. I'm a state representative in Austin, Texas, and we have an extraordinarily active University Democrats chapter at the University of Texas. Every time I run for re-election, I run a program called Campaign Academy for high school and college students in my area, where they come and spend their summer volunteering on my campaign, and we bring in daily guest speakers to teach them all there is to know about politics. And it's just wonderful to see this year be the year when young people are actually being felt across the country. They were clearly a decisive factor in the Iowa caucus, and that was a decisive factor in the outcome of the nominating process, and in every state that followed. In my home state of Texas, you've never seen anything like the way the University of Texas campus just was energized by the Obama candidacy. And I think that is going to carry through to November, and I think it's going to be decisive in an Obama victory in November.
How do you make the transition to elected politics from working at Rock the Vote? I mean, what would you tell young people who might be interested in elected office themselves?
Well, I went from Rock the Vote into the private sector and started an internet company, and then made the transition back into politics 4 years later. It's a transition that I think anybody can make when they have their sense of purpose about running. For me, the sense of purpose came from some things that happened in Texas while I was in the private sector. The Republicans got control of the Texas legislature. They immediately slashed 250,000 kids from children's health insurance. They cut teacher pay, and they spent the majority of their time working on a political exercise to redistrict Texas congressional district boundaries to try to take some of the Democratic members of Congress out of the Texas delegation. It was just an appalling record, and that was what made me feel I needed to leave the private sector and get back into politics. I think that when you have a real purpose for running, the transition from whatever you were doing before comes relatively easy.
All right, we don't want to keep you too long, but what would you say is the top difference between the Youth+Vote and how campaigns were working on it in '96 and in 2008?
Well, it's extraordinarily different. I mean, that's the biggest difference. I mean, the Obama campaign has reached out to young people in the media where they relate. They've gone, big time on the internet, but also on Comedy Central, and both candidates have reached out through Comedy Central, which has become a really increasingly important factor in the political media. You also see them valuing the contributions that young people can make, not just as voters, but as volunteers. And the Obama campaign is dominated by these extraordinarily talented 22, 23, and 24-year-olds with limited political experience, but enough energy and wisdom to make up for their lack of experience. I'm really inspired by it, and I think I endorsed Obama very early in the campaign because he came to Austin a year and a half before the primary and held a rally with 25,000 people there, and almost all of them were in their 20s. And I had never seen a politician who could engage young people at that level, and I said, if he can do that and sustain it, it can change a lot of things about this country for the better.